Hello everyone, my name is Lisa Square and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for Behavior Analysts Incorporated. Today's broadcast is to provide you with an in-depth look at our newly enhanced WebABLLS 2.0 online assessment program. We're honored to have Dr. James Partington, Founder Director of Behavior Analysts, author of the ABLLS-R and co-author of the ABLLS, joining us in presenting the features and functionality that makes WebABLLS the dynamic program it is. Also joining us today for a virtual tour is our WebABLLS manager, Kathy Santapadre. I'm sure you will enjoy today's presentation, and now I'll turn this over to Dr. Partington.
Thank you, Lisa, and greetings to every one of you attending. Today I'm pleased to announce the WebABLLS 2.0 with its redesigned platform and new user interface. WebABLLS 2.0 is a very cost-effective and time-effective tool used to conduct and update comprehensive skills assessment, track a student's progress, and produce custom reports. Many people want to help children develop their potential, and I always say that you need two components for that. One, you need the heart. That means you need to care about the kids and you want to make sure that they do the very best that they can. And there's many people out there who have the heart, but they also have to have something more, and that's the technical skills. And this program, the WebABLLS 2.0, will help you improve your technical skills to help the children do their best that they possibly can. Effective treatment requires selecting appropriate learning objectives and then the implementation of effective teaching procedures to teach those skills. I've been working in the field for over 40 years and I'm still often very frustrated because I continue to see consultants, educators, and parents unknowingly select inappropriate learning targets for their students. When the children fail to make progress, it's often a result of picking the wrong targets, and it results in escape and avoidance behavior, and ultimately it results in the child failing to reach his or her potential. Simply put, we need to make sure that the child is working on appropriate learning tasks all throughout his educational career. The ABLLS-R provides a comprehensive review of critical skills that are typically developed by children by the time they're ready to enter kindergarten, and that's for typically developing children. It covers not only critical language skills such as the verbal operants and other basic skills such as imitation, visual performance, and social skills, but it also covers self-help, motor skills, and early academic skills. Because the skills in the ABLLS-R are arranged in order from simpler to more complex, and because the assessment is written in everyday language that is easy for parents and teachers to understand, meaning that they don't need to learn the technical terms used by professional behavior analysts, it helps parents, teachers, and consultants to pick developmentally appropriate instructional objectives. In 2007, we launched the original WebABLLS application, which we now call our legacy site. It has been proven to be very useful for parents and providers in the assessment and tracking of skills and the development of appropriate program plans. It also allowed us to collect data on the development of each of those skills by typically developing children. We now know at what age all typically developing children acquire each of the skills listed at the ABLLS-R. This is very important information to help in the understanding of the order in which these skills are typically acquired by children. You'll see how to access those data later in this webinar. Today, we want to show you our newly redesigned platform and its new user interface. The WebABLLS 2.0 streamlines the assessment process and saves teachers, parents, and program developers a great deal of time in the development of IEPs, or you may call them program plans or intervention plans. And the teachers often report that with an updated assessment, they can easily write a developmentally appropriate program plan in less than an hour. And I want to point out that all of this information, which is entered in there and can be viewed by all members of the team, is easily exported and entered into school district programs should that be necessary. There are many reasons why you should use this program. First of all, you can use your tablet, smartphone, or computer to administer, update, reference assessments, reports, videos of the skills, and so on, from anywhere you have access to the internet. You can easily develop custom, developmentally appropriate program plans using the objectives and criteria from the ABLLS-R. You can either cut and paste the criteria that's listed in the ABLLS-R or make your own criteria for each of the objectives. As I mentioned before, you can quickly create a progress report including objectives from your program plan without needing to re-enter the data. You also have access to our signature toolkit to download supplemental teaching materials, normative data, quick tips, and more, including list of verbs, adjectives, our 220 nouns list from anywhere you happen to have access to the internet. You can also authorize and control sharing rights by giving team members, administrators, and/or parents the ability to view or modify the program or reports. As you'll find from Kathy, there's many different ways in which you can allow people to have certain access to different types of documents and restrict it to others. It's a great way to share and get feedback on draft versions from others in the team. You can also view and share over 200 video demonstrations of the target skills to be developed. This feature allows you to show parents and instructors a model of how the task is presented and how a typically developing child performs the task. Furthermore, you can upload documents to the student's portal. So if you have outside reports from other professionals, data, or procedure sheets, you can easily upload those and secure all your students' documents in one location. And again, it's available any time or place when you have access to the internet. I want to point out another feature. This program is totally flexible. It can be used by a parent for their child, just a single use, or it can be for a teacher who has a classroom of students where she can keep the information on all her students. It can be used by a special education director who has multiple schools, multiple classrooms, and so forth to keep track of all the students in the district. And it can be used by a supervisor of a clinic who has multiple consultants who are out working with children, writing program plans, again, to track the progress of the children that they're working with. So at this point, I'm going to turn the program over to Kathy to let her tell you about the features.
Thank you, Dr. Partington. We are so excited to have you here with us to provide your insight and expertise on the teaching and clinical aspects with regard to the history of the ABLLS-R as well as the content of WebABLLS. My role today is to take you on a tour of the features and functions within WebABLLS and show you the benefits and the highlights of this time-saving tool. So here's a quick overview of the topics I'll be covering today. Throughout the tour, we're going to be highlighting the many of the new features that have been created in WebABLLS 2.0. We're going to start with a visit to the dashboard, followed by an overview of the key components to site navigation, how you get around the site. We'll be using the site's core navigation tools, which are all designed to be consistent throughout the site. We'll show you the new admin user tools that have been created. Then we're going to move into some of the actual features, the student profiles, how easy it is to add a student, along with a chance to see the new student summary screen. The assessment, we'll quickly create an assessment and review the tools that make the assessment function so useful. Then we're going to talk about the new and improved sharing permissions, the student files, and the student history, which are all new in WebABLLS 2.0. And then we'll wrap up with talking about the seven different types of reports that are available that have, they're now enhanced with some added features along with a couple of new report options. So here are a few highlights of a couple of the new things. We have the self-registration ordering. There's no more waiting for your activation of your account. It happens instantaneously. We have the admin user management tools. We have user preferences, which is a completely new thing within WebABLLS. And we have our navigation tools that get you where you need to be very, very quickly. So we're going to get started with our tour. We'll start here at the login screen. I'm going to click here. When you first get logged in, we want you to go under your account screen, which is the link here in the banner, and that will take you to the place where you can revise your password and also set your user preferences. There are one of the new features in here is the student history tracking, and what that does is that actually tags activities with each student profile to the user, and there's a time and a date stamp. So having your time zone setting in place is really helpful for that information to be accurate. So as I said, we're going to start with the dashboard and the landing screen here. This is where you will come when you first log in. I'm going to collapse a couple of these windows. And this is a completely new tool within WebABLLS. We are so excited about it. It's designed for ease and flexibility to get to what you need quickly. As it begins to populate, you will see that your recent history, your students are going to show up there. It's a very quick and easy way to get to a student that you've been working on recently. It has links to all of the help and resources. You have information about your subscription, and here is also where you can click this form to create a new student. There's also another place where you can add a student in the site, and I'll show that to you when we add our student. You've got your handy to-do list here, and just pretty much everything is available to you very quickly and from this screen. So a little bit about the site navigation and the mechanics of that. First of all, I want to point out we have the banner links that are here at the top, and we have footer links that are here at the bottom. The banner links and footer links will be consistent throughout your entire session while logged into WebABLLS. And the banner links will get you to the features and functions of the site, the tools that you'll be using as you navigate through and create your student and your assessments and your reports. The footer links are all related to resource-related tools, whether it's contacting support, going into the toolkit to get some type of information from there or some teaching tips that you need, the user guide, those types of things. One thing I do like to point out within WebABLLS, there's a variety of ways to get to the same thing. As you navigate through, we're doing some really simplistic things here, but I will point out some of those things. But as you become more and more familiar with the system, you're going to find your own shortcut. First, though, I'm going to talk about some of the mechanics of how some of these things work, how these little boxes work. We have 3 core features of the mechanics. We have action panels, we have student filters, and we have lists. They will vary from screen to screen, depending on what the function of that screen is. But nearly every screen will have action panels. And the action panels are basically a box with links to the different features and functions related to that current screen. The filters and the lists sort of work together. Wherever there's a list screen, you will usually have a filter, and the filter will help you navigate through your list to pull up the student you need, the data you need, whether it's an assessment or a report, very, very quickly. They're very powerful. They work fast. I do like to point out, I just type in 2 letters into the name field, and my student has come up that I'm looking for. You can enter a student name or an ID number there, and it will come up very quickly. The list down below, each list has column headers, and you can sort by those column headers by simply clicking on the link. You click date of birth, you've got it all in order of the date of birth. If you click it again, it will do the reverse order. And that's valid with any of these column headers. The other thing I want to point out is wherever you see a student's name, that name is hyperlinked to the student summary, which we're going to go to in a few minutes, and the ID number is actually hyperlinked to the student profile, which is where you enter the student's information, name and birth date. So these are handy to know throughout the site. Wherever you see that hyperlink with the student name, it will take you to that student summary screen. It's a very quick shortcut. Another thing about our lists is, well, you'll notice up here our action panel links are all grayed out. They are inactive right now. That's because we're on a general list with a lot of students, and the system doesn't know what summary maybe you want to go to. If you click any of the rows in the list, it will, if not the hyperlink, but just the row, it will turn yellow. And you'll notice when that happened, now the system knows what summary I want to go to, and it would be that student there. So those are some of the tools that you will use in terms of the mechanics of how to use the site once you've navigated to the page you need to be in. Next, I'm going to point out the admin user tools. Not everybody will have an organization tab, only admin users will have this tab, but I do like to point this out so everybody's familiar with what those functions are, so you know your admin user is the person you would go to if you need help with getting a password, or if the sharing permissions for your student aren't correct, the admin user would be your first point of contact to figure out what's happening and to help you correct that problem. And then, of course, if you needed, you would come to the WebABLLS support team after that. When you click on the Organization tab, it will show the details of the organization in terms of the name and the subscription and the seats that are available. Over here in the Action panel, there's also a timeout setting feature where the admin user can set the timeout setting for a particular period of time or can opt to have that set by users. So if the user is given that control, then you would change that in your account user preferences. There's an organization user list where the management tools are in place for the admin user. There's an add user link where the admin user can instantly create a user account by just putting in first name, last name, email address, and selecting the role type. We have our new student parameters, which are setting for custom fields that can be created for your organization. When we add our student, I'm going to point out the custom parameters that are set into this demonstration account. We have the archived students list, and this is also a new feature. This is where if you have a student that is no longer with your organization or in your classroom, you can actually have that student archived. It sort of parks the profile in a place and kind of takes it out of your seat count. So that seat can now be used for you to add another student. And then your student roster, which is where the admin user has access to see the basically the profile information for each of the students that are registered to the organization. The open order addresses and orders links, these all have to do with placing orders. The open order is where the admin user would create and place an order. Addresses are the billing address that's entered with that order, and then orders itself will show you a history of all of the orders associated with the organization and access to download order summaries and or invoices. So now we are going to go and add our student. Now I mentioned several ways to get to the same thing. So on the dashboard I showed you where you can click Form to add your student. Now I'm going to click the Student tab in the banner, and I'm going to show you here the Add Student link is here as well. Either link will take you to the same screen. So here we are at the Add Student screen, and we're going to begin to add our student. And some people might ask why some of these are required fields. Some of them are obvious and some of them are not. I do like to point out that first of all, the child's first name, the name that is entered here in this field, that will be included in the text throughout all of the assessments and reports that are associated with the child. The date of birth will automatically calculate the age in years on your assessment details screen, and the age in months is used for the new print to PDF with age of the total grid view screen. We've always been able to print that, but it now has a place where it will insert the number of months based on the child's birth date, how old the child was when that task was actually scored. The gender field will determine the personal pronouns that are populated into the text of the assessments and reports, just like the name. So that would be the he, she, and the him, her. And then the gender and the sign language as a potential response form, those two selections will govern the availability of a couple of specific tasks within the assessment. Now I'm going to come back in here and you'll see this field here I haven't filled in yet. It says site/service. In the custom parameters, those student parameters that we've set in the admin panel. We've identified this field as site service. This will not show up on your account unless somebody has set it up, and it can have any name that it needs to have. There's a drop-down field here with 4 selections that we have entered that are specific to our organization. I'm going to choose, there's Walnut Creek, there's Distance Consultation, our Hawaii office, and STARS Clinic. I'm going to click Walnut Creek, and that's one of our arms of our agency, and so my student I am associating with that. What this helps is for when you're sorting and looking for specific groups of students, you will now have this ability to sort on your site or your location. So I'll come down to the bottom and I'm going to save my student. There are 3 options for how you save. I'm just going to do the simplest one right now, but the other 2 are there. So if you just need to save your student, go straight to an assessment. You don't have to go find where to add that assessment. You just click that button. So we're going to save our student. And the screen's going to refresh and it comes back and my student has been added down here at the bottom of my list. It's actually, I believe the default is for that to sort by ID number. So when you add a student, it will most likely add to the bottom of the list. If you have, we have some people who have, you know, hundreds of students in this student list. If that's the case, you can use your filter to find your student very, very quickly. With that, now we are going to go and see the student summary for our new student. The student summary is basically a hub for all things related to your student. You'll notice here you have information that is drawn from the profile screen, and there's a section here called Assessments and Reports. We've just created this student, so we don't have any reports or assessments to show, but when we come back after we create our assessment, it will actually show up here in the student summary. We also show all of the sharing permissions. Anybody that has access to the student through the sharing permissions will show up here, and it will show not only the, we don't have any shared right now, but it would show whether they have view only or full access or whatever. There are many different levels of sharing rights, but that will show there. So, and then you have links to do all of the different functions with your student. So we're going to click Add Assessment. And it comes to the Add Assessment screen. Once we fill this out and we save it, it's actually going to be renamed the assessment, or excuse me, the assessment details screen is what the name will be. You'll notice here the child's age has been converted based on the date of birth we put in. I like to point out something about the assessment date. As we all know, you might be entering this data at a different time. You may have started this assessment a week ago. And so that might be the date that you want to put in here instead of this date. The system is going to give the default will be the date and time that we actually click the save button on this. That will be what's called the creation date. Each assessment will have 2 dates. One is a creation and one is called an assigned or assessment date. So here I have put in the custom date that I need. This is what's going to show on my total grid view in the legend, and it's going to show in the columns for my assigned date. The grade level you can enter here, complete 0 scoring, and you can learn more about that in the help documents or in the ABLLS-R guide. We've got our sign language is a potential response form for the student. You can, if you miss this setting in your profile, you can make up for it here so that the system knows whether to turn that task on or off. And then you'll come down in here and select your color. At the bottom here, there's a convenient place for you to enter what's happening in terms of services for this child at the time of the assessment. You have a drop-down field. There are several populated with different types of services a child might be receiving. I'm going to select special education. There is an other, so you can actually put in a custom field if you need to. And over here, you would pick the approximate numbers of hours per week. Then you come down to the bottom for your edit method, and there are 3 edit methods within WebABLLS. They all interchange. Whichever one you use is personal preference. We have some people who have one that's a favorite, and we have others that use all 3. So the radio button for my account right now is set to grid automatically because that's what I have set in my user preferences. So whatever you have it set with is what will show up here. You can, I just like to demonstrate, you can select any one of the 3. And I'm going to go with the grid for starting here. Here we are at the grid edit screen, and for those of you familiar with the ABLLS-R, it looks a lot like the 3 pages at the beginning of the book, which is called the skills tracking system. When we go into score, you're going to click into any one of the checkboxes that matches the criteria for that particular task. You'll notice it auto-populates. If I have a score of 4, it will populate all 4 by just one click. So we're going to score a couple of things, and as you may have noticed off to the right here, there's this little yellow save banner. This is a reminder for you to save your data. There's a save link up here in the action panel, but you may not notice that or remember that. So this little save banner will follow you no matter where you are on the screen. And you can just click that and very easily save your changes, and it confirms that by turning green. So another thing I'm going to point out, I'm going to do one little score in here so I can show you one of my favorite items, which is the task info box. And if you notice, if I hover over here, this does come up with the task name. It says motor imitation of fine motor movement. So if you just need to score, but you just need a quick reminder of what that task is, you can just hover over that. If you click it, it's actually going to come up with the task info box. And I'm showing you this task info box in particular because it has all of the features that a task info box can have. These tabs that are within it are going to, especially this files and video tabs, those are going to be conditional on whether or not this particular task has a file associated or a video associated. The files are what we call appendix documents, and not all tasks have an appendix document that goes along with it, but if it does, it will show up in this task info box with a link for you to download. The same with the videos. There are 544 skills within the ABLLS-R assessment, and in WebABLLS there are about 250 video clips that are associated with tasks. The video clips are actually quite short. They can be anywhere from 6 or 7 seconds to about a minute, maybe a little more, and this is where you can come in and view them. And like I said, if the task doesn't have a video, the video link will not be here. The other information that's here I like to just point out is scores, and here's where some of that history tracking comes into play. You'll notice here that there's a score of 3 that I just tagged for this, scored on this assessment. The name, I'm admin demo in this account, and it shows the date and the timestamp of when that score was made. So I'm not sure if I really pointed out, when you first open your task info box, you have all of the information about that particular task as it is written in the print version. So you've got all of the criteria information and kind of some explanations about what that task is. I'm on grid edit now, and I'm going to go to text mode. So here we are, and you'll see we've got the scores that I entered in grid edit have now populated into text edit, and they will into the cat edit also. I can continue scoring here, and I can continue using this as a save link. I'm going to score here. I'm going to show you a different option with the save link, and it is this save and continue to the next category. A very quick way to move through if you're just populating an assessment and don't have to jump around to the categories. If you do need to go to a specific category and not just the next one, down here in the category action panel, we have all 25 categories within the assessment. So moving on, you can continue. If you just click on any one of those links, it will take you to that screen, and you can continue with your scoring. I'm going to score down and show you how D12 has showed up down here. That's the one that I scored to show you that example. The look and feel of the text edit is more like the book version. You have all of that information about your task that's displaying. You don't have to click into the task info box. When you hover over the alphanumeric code here, the task name doesn't come up because it's actually right next to it. But if you click on that, you will get back to the same task info box just as you do in the others, and it will show you all of the information just as the others. Again, really personal preference, which format you prefer to use. So now we're going to go over to our CAT mode, and this is our new assessment edit screen. And a couple of things I want to point out when I did that transfer over. One, you'll see that the task, of course, is still scored, just as it was before, but I was in category D when I was on that text mode, and when I clicked CAT, it stayed in category D. Now, of course, I can very quickly go back to one of the other categories, but it's nice that it will stay consistent with what screen you were on last. So now we're going to score again, and we'll save and just keep going. We can again use this save or the save and continue to the next category. The category screen or edit screen was developed. It's kind of a marriage between both the grid and the text. The grid in its format, the text in that it's each category individually. The reason it was developed was this is specifically designed for people who may have small computer screens, might use a smartphone or a tablet. The categories, the tasks go from top to bottom. The boxes are much larger and much easier to select when it's on the smaller screen. So with that, now we are going to go back to our student summary screen. And as I mentioned earlier, many ways to get to the same item. Now I could certainly go back to my dashboard and click on my student's name and get to my summary screen, or do the same thing from under the student tab. But I've got this action panel here that has all of the functions that I can do with this particular student. So I'm actually going to just click summary. And now it takes me straight there. It's one click versus probably 2 or 3 clicks to get back to the student summary. And here you will see that our assessment has been added, and it now shows our color, it shows our assigned date. This is not the creation date, and a couple of links that are related to that assessment. So moving into that, from a management of the assessments, I do like to point out, one, we've talked about the saving. You want to make sure you're always saving. With editing, yes, you can go back if you haven't finished entering all of your scores. You can resume scoring, or you can go back and change scores if you need to. The best and easiest way to do that is from the student summary screen, and you would simply come in here and click any one of these hyperlinks to go to the edit screen that you prefer, the grid, text, or CAT. To review or to revise your assessment details, and remember the assessment details, that's where we entered the color. That's usually the best way to describe that. You would simply click details, and it will take you to the details screen, and you can revise your assessment date. You can add your information about the services the child is providing or being provided. You can change your assessment color. There are lots of things you can do in there. Deleting an assessment, you would also do that through your details screen. You can delete, but it will only allow you to delete the most recent assessment. You can do as many as you need, but it will only allow you to do one at a time, and it starts with the most recent. You can print from a management stand. You can print the total grid view, and you can also print what's called a completed and incomplete items report. And then there's also our new assessment notes, which relates back to how you're managing things. In the task info box is where you would add notes. And then there is a assessment notes feature right here where it will create a document, and you can determine what notes you want included that and which ones you don't. Here we go with some of our other items. We've talked about that category edit screen. We're going to go into a little bit of more detail about the sharing permissions. I'm going to talk about the file uploads and the student history as well. So with the sharing permissions, there are a variety of different ways you can set the permissions now. In the legacy site, it was view or modify, and that was it. There were 2 levels of permissions. Now we have a lot of different permissions, and there are basically about up to 13 different combinations that you can give to somebody in terms of the sharing rights. They drill down from, owner rights, who gets to do everything, same with the profile coordinator, full access with share, and then you get into really being able to isolate those into segments for complete control. The permissions can be revised very, very quickly. You can give access to an assessment for somebody to score a few items or review a couple of things. When they're done, you can undo those sharing rights and change them from modify back to view or to none. It's really, you have very good control. They're safe and secure. Sharing rights, they link the student ID number with the user ID number, and that's how they stay in place. If those are not linked together in the back end of the system, the user will not have access to the student profile. Authorization of sharing permissions can happen with any user throughout the entire WebABLLS community, and this is something that a lot of people, even from our legacy site, did not know, that you don't have to just give sharing permissions to people who are in your organization. If they're outside of your organization, there is some limits on the level of sharing rights you can provide, but you can certainly give them full access so they have access to the student profile. So with the student files, and I know Dr. Partington touched base on this, but every student in the system has a file cabinet, a filing cabinet or a portal, and here's where you can upload, just about any document that might be relevant to the student or to the team. You can do procedure sheets, data sheets, language lists, song lists, or perhaps, important documents that, parents have submitted and need to be connected with the student in some way, outside reports. All types of things can be added to the filing cabinet. And then with sharing permissions, you can, either give or restrict the access to those documents as well. The history tracking. All activity that's related to a student profile is now tagged in the system with the username and the date and timestamp. This is critical, so we know going back who scored this and why, or this IEP was written really well, I want to know who did it, those types of things. So a couple of more things to point out. We have our toolkit, which Lisa is going to talk about in a little bit. You can create those custom account parameter fields that are designed to really help organize your students. We've got our program worksheet titles in Legacy. The worksheet title was IEP worksheet, and that was it. Now we have, there's a drop-down list of 16 different report titles, and if you've got one that you think should be added, you can send it off to us and we put it through our approval. If it's approved, we will add it to the list. And we have new printing options. As I mentioned earlier, the PDF can now be printed with the age inserted. We also, with all of the reports, you can now print those reports. The ones that have notes can either be printed with or without the notes. And that's a very important feature that we're glad we were able to add. So speaking of reports, I'm going to do a quick rundown on the different reports and what they do. So the program worksheet is a custom document that includes tasks selected straight from the assessment. These are tasks that you create or that you select to include in the worksheet. And then the progress report, which is a report that corresponds directly with the program worksheet. You can't have a progress report without having a program worksheet first. Then we have a status report, which is a static report that it's used as a quick reference for a specific group of tasks, and these are tasks that you have selected. If you want to highlight a section or several things to show that there's been good progress or maybe lack of progress, the status report is a great tool for that. We also have a baseline report, and the baseline report is a very, very quick, you click one button and you will get a report that will show all 544 tasks throughout the entire assessment. It will give the title of the task and the current score for the particular child at that time. We have the completed and incomplete items reports, and these two, they kind of seem to go together, but they're really just opposite of one another. Completed items includes every task within the assessment that has been scored to have met full criteria. Incomplete items is all of the tasks that have not been scored to having met criteria. And then, as I mentioned before, we also have our assessment notes. It's more of a document, but that pulls the notes that have been entered into the assessment via the task info box, and what it does is it shows the task name and the note that is there, and you can pair that with your total grid view page or with your baseline report, any of those types of things. So with that, the focus today is going to be on the program worksheet and the progress report, and Dr. Partington is actually going to walk us through generating those documents and showing you how easily they can be created and how customized they can be.
Thank you, Kathy. That was a very nice description of how this all works. So everyone should see my screen now. And what I'm going to do is show you how I go through using the WebABLLS 2.0 to make an IEP, or what you might want to call a program plan for a student, and how to generate a progress report based off of that. So as Kathy said, I've already got some information here on the student, but what I'm going to do is go to my dashboard. I always like to start there, because when I click on my dashboard, it will show you all of my students that I have. And this is a demonstration account, so these are all fake names, so that you don't need to worry about privacy. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start here, and I'm going to select this student, Edward Smith, okay, that I put in here. And you'll see here that, again, as Kathy pointed out, there's assessments and reports that are listed, but here there's only an assessment. Now, when it comes time for me to actually develop a IEP or progress report, I go to the total grid view and click on that. And then what this allows me to do is pick and choose which objectives I want to work on. So I come over here, and if I want to do this, I could say generate a program worksheet, but oops, I didn't select anything. So the program automatically says, before you try to write a progress report or a program report, you need to tell me what you want to include in that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, and I've already pre-selected for the student what I want him to work on. So I'm going to grab C16, which is select one of 6 objects on a table. I'm also going to select D18, which is touch objects in sequence following a model. I'm also going to pick for him the ability to mand with an item present, or ask for things that are present, and also to spontaneously request items that he wants, as well as I want to develop his ability to label items, common objects that he sees. So I'm going to click those objectives or those tasks for him. Now, when I come back over here, I can see that I have a limit of 50, but I've selected 5. And then I can go ahead and generate a program report for this. And so now what the program has done is put Edward's name into each of the objectives. So here it says, Edward will select a specified object for at least 100 common objects when the object is presented in an array of 6 or more objects on a table in front of him. So you'll notice it puts his name in and the appropriate pronoun in there too. Now what I can do here at this point in time is I can go in and start entering his current level. And this is important for when I go to do the progress report. This information will come back. It will already be there. So I can say he can receptively identify 42 objects. And as you'll notice, the spell checker is built in here, so it makes me look good. I can come in and correct that so that I don't have to show that I can't spell very well or type very well. I get all that information in there. And now what I've done here is I've got all this information, and what I can do is if I want, I can say, well, this 100 objects is quite a bit. Let's just say I don't want 100. Well, I can go back here, I can set it, to 50, he's already at 42, or I can set it anywhere I want. So if I want to put in 70 common objects, I can do that. So I can change each of these objectives. And again, I can go ahead and take and cut and paste, for instance, if I want the criteria, cut it, paste it right into the objective, and it'll be there later on. Now I'm going to quickly go through this, so I'm going to show you. I'm going to go back now, and what I want to do at this point is I want to show you the student summary. So, oops, guess what? It shows here that I haven't saved it yet. I see the yellow marker, so I better save this or I'm going to lose it. So now it's saved. Now what I can do is go back to the student summary, and now you'll see that there's a program worksheet that I developed today. I can go back and edit that if I want. So if I want to go back and say, well, I don't really want to call it a program worksheet, you can't see this, I believe, but I can actually pull down a menu here, and I can go to call it treatment objectives. And then if I want to change the date and say, let's say I don't want it now, but I could say that it's going to be, since it's a leap year coming up here, I'll say I can put the, let's see, I'll make it the 29th for tomorrow. That's when it's going to be current, okay? So I can change the date on that and make it any way I want. Now, once I'm here, what I can also do then is once I've done this, I'm now in the program plan. Now what I can do, if I want to, is generate a progress report. And again, this is what makes it so easy for teachers and consultants, supervisors of programs, is when you need to do your update, you can now come in and say all the information that you previously entered is there. The objective, which was changed, is now current. And then you can go in and say, he can now, or actually I put in here, I like to put in that they're met or continue. So I put met, period, oops. He can now receptively identify 73 objects. Okay, so now my progress report is easily done. I just fill it in and I can submit it. I can print it with notes, or I can print it without notes. If I want to have notes to have for myself in the IEP meeting or program planning meeting, I can print those out for myself. If I don't want others to see the notes, I can easily do this. I can also export it so that I can put it into district programs and so forth. So anyhow, this is how I do it. Again, I'm going to go back to the total grid view. Oops, I didn't save it, so I'm just going to lose it. So that's my fault. But when I come back here, again, if I want to, I can click any of these objects here like this. If I mouse over this item, you can't see this, but it pops up on my screen. It says imitation of touching objects in sequence following a model. And again, as Kathy pointed out, if I click on that, it's hyperlinked to the task info box, and I can see the notes. I can add notes to it. I can see the scores that were previously put in there. I can show a video. And again, I use this a lot to show parents and teachers what the skill is supposed to look like. Go into a classroom. I can actually do an instruction for all the instructional assistants on how to develop an imitation repertoire just by kind of going and showing them all the videos of what a typically developing child, is able to do so that they can learn what it is they're supposed to be teaching their students. Okay, well, with that, I'm now going to turn this over to Lisa, who will now show us all the information about what's in the toolkit. The very useful information in there. So, Lisa, you're good.
Thank you so much, Dr. Partington. Kathy, that was a wonderful tour. Hi, everyone. It's Lisa Squadair back. Right now, I would like to take you through one of the most new and exciting features of WebABLLS that I feel is something that's going to really assist you in how you manage your time and resources that you'll be able to access, and that is our signature toolkit. The toolkit is packed with resources that assist you with teaching. We've gone through assessing, we've gone through tracking, we've gone through reporting, and now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the tools to help you teach. From your home screen, you'll be able to see there's two places to access the toolkit. You can access it up in the admin demo panel where it says hello admin demo, and then down at the bottom where you see the pointer. When you get into the toolkit, included are some downloadable files like the appendices of the ABLLS-R and language lists. In addition to this, you also have access to Dr. Partington's normative data. That can be used in comparison with your students and clients to typically developing peers. And most impressive and exclusive to WebABLLS, we have included our Quick Tips product. Quick Tips is a set of condensed readings for various behavioral teaching topics, along with guided exercises that you can use for training. Our toolkit's going to continue to expand and grow with new additions in the coming months and additional resources that will assist you in teaching your children well. So I want to thank everyone for coming. Please feel free to contact us if you have any further questions, and we look forward to working with you in the future.